Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Today I'll show you how to make this delicious carne guisada. First we're going to start off with about 3.5 to 4 pounds of stew meat. It's already chopped. I get it at Sam's. Then we're going to get about 4 cups of water. This is just kind of a give or take. You don't have to use all of it. We're going to do 3 cloves of garlic, 1 whole onion, and I'm going to slice them up in slices like these, in half rings. And then about 6 to 8 Roma tomatoes. And you're gonna try and pick the reddest ones and the squishiest ones that you have. This recipe is great for these older tomatoes that are sitting in your fridge. Then we're gonna do some kosher salt, some garlic powder, and some onion powder, and some black pepper. All right, here are the garlics. They're chopped up. And of course our onion. With these onions, I'm gonna take a little ring and I'm gonna put it aside. And these are some of my tomatoes that are chopped up roughly. They don't have to be perfect, just roughly chopped. And then here's about 3 of them that I've kind of put aside. And these are going to go in the stew later on. And these are going to go in a blender along with the onion. And these, like I said, they're going to go into the stew later on. So I don't have a big blender. I use my little magic bullet. And I'm just going to pour some of the chopped tomatoes and, blend it up. It's gonna make it into a very delicious tomato puree. During this whole session, or during this process, you're going to want to season it to your liking. I usually just use salt, and then of course I use the water. And then like I said, I'm pureeing in batches, so it's gonna take me a little bit. And this is what the puree looks like. I know it looks crazy right now, but as the tomatoes cook down and it blends with the meat, it's going to make this delicious broth, and it will taste like beef, so you'll see. All right, so we're going to be working on the beef. What I do is I like to take off as much fat as possible. This nasty stuff I don't like it, and this is what I've taken off so far. This right here, leave a little bit just to give it flavor, but usually take off most of it. And what I do is I just trim as much as I can. And then with this, we're going to go ahead and toss it in the pot. I put about 2 tablespoons, maybe 1, of olive oil or vegetable oil, whatever oil you have on hand, and pour it in. And what this does is it just kind of keeps the meat from not sticking, and it kind of sears it a little bit. So you can always cook them in little batches if you want darker meat. I just toss the entire, 3 pounds of beef in there. And then we just kind of cook it up. What this is going to do, and then we're going to throw in the garlic too. What this is going to do is it's going to cook. As it's cooking, it's going to let out a whole bunch of juice. You don't stop the process of cooking it there. You are going to wait until the until the juice is completely drained, to where there is absolutely no liquid at the bottom of the pan, where basically the meat's kind of sticking already, because you're going to sear it. And that's what just gives the whole meat such great flavor. It's what's going to give the tomato such great flavor. Also, at this point, you're going to start trying to add salt, your garlic powder, your onion powder, and your pepper. And again, just finish the process of cooking. It's going to take about 30 minutes, maybe, if that. My oven kind of cooks a little slower, so. Now, as far as the seasonings, I had about 2 teaspoons of each. Except the salt. The salt, I kind of eyeball it because, again, you don't need a lot. The tomatoes give it such great flavor. And all right, guys, after about 30-45 minutes, your meat will look like this. And the juice is all completely dried. You can see the bottom of the pan. And what you're going to do at this point is you're going to finish stirring it, let the rest of the juice kind of drain, absorb. And then you're going to pour in the tomato puree, the puree that we made earlier. And I'm totally off camera, sorry. What we do now is we let this cook for about 2 hours to 3 hours. The longer you let it cook, the more tender your meat will be and the more delicious this stew will turn out. My mom always cooked it for hours on end, and by the time we got home from school, it was so delicious. Also, what you want to try and remember is try to stir it every now and then. Here we go. What I do is I add about a cup of water to this, and by adding the water, it it just makes it a little bit more liquidier, but we don't want to make it too liquidy because it's gonna, you know, it's gonna go over rice. It's gonna be really good. It's a stew. You want to make it a little thicker. So we stir it up. We're gonna go ahead and cover it up. Again, cook it for about 2 hours to 3 hours. But in the middle of the process, we are going to toss in our veggies too. So see, this is what it looks like after about an hour. You see how that tomato paste kind of looks like broth now, like a beefy broth. It's so good. And I'm testing to see the tenderness of the meat. Obviously my spoon doesn't go in all the way on some of them, and on some of them it does go. But you want all of the pieces of meat to be really tender. See, it's already starting to get tender. So at this point, what I usually do to make the meat a little spicier, when the meat's like that, you know, that tenderness, I go ahead and add 2 jalapenos like these. I know the stems look kind of gross in there, but trust me, you'll be able to pull out the jalapeno if you don't want it, you know, in your stew later on. You'll just be able to pull it out with the stem. And you just let it cook down for another 30 minutes. And during the 30 minutes, I wash a potato and I chop it up. It's a big russet potato, and like this one. See, I just peel it and cut it in little squares. All right, it's been about an hour and a half, and I'm gonna toss in the rest of the tomatoes and the onions into the pot, and I'm gonna let it cook for another 30, maybe 45 minutes. You just pretty much need to eyeball the meat. You want to finish cooking this to your liking, meaning however tender you like your meat, that's when you're going to stop your cooking process. I like mine very tender because my kids and my husband hate chewy meat. So, all right, this is after about 30-45 minutes. You see how the jalapenos have bursted? That's good because all the spicy flavor is just going into that broth. So it's really, it's not spicy, it just kind of gives it a kick, you know? And then once that happens, I add the potatoes and we are done, guys. And I serve it over some rice. And I hope you guys enjoyed this recipe. If you do, comment below.